Recovery is stupendous.
Achievable.
Hope.
Freedom.
Empowering.
It's unique to everyone.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Getting a new lease on life.
It's finding restoration after you fall down.
Recovery is having the freedom to enjoy life.
For me, it was finding a way to really love myself.
My recovery is possible in part because of my own sense of purpose.
Welcome to Montana's Peer Network Recovery Talks podcast. I'm Jim Haney.
And I'm Andi Daniel.
Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode. Today, Andi and I are going to be talking about goal setting.
Yeah, a lot of times, it's January and people talk about like New Year's resolutions and what are we going to do the next year. And a lot of times that's just sort of fluffy and we need to be a little more
specific. Yeah, that's the word I think of. Specific, exactly. Yeah, and I think what we're really going to talk about is setting SMART goals, and specific actually is the first letter of it, because I agree, Andi. I think millions of people set goals every year, and whether they're New Year's resolutions or, January, just like that's the time we all sort of go, oh, let's evaluate what I'm going to do this year. But if you don't make a plan as to how you're going to do it, like, okay, I'm going to try to lose weight. See, I'm already saying I'm going to try, like right off the bat. I'm going to lose weight. How are you going to lose weight, Jim? And like actually develop a plan, right?
Yeah.
How am I going to lose the weight? I mean, I think it's so important. And I think for those of us in recovery, there's usually a lot of stuff we got to work on, right? Like a lot of different elements happening all at once in our wellness or our quest for wellness.
Yeah, and sometimes that can be really overwhelming. And
for sure.
So, that's one of the things with goal setting is that they don't have to be huge goals. Especially when you're starting out. You need to start with smaller things that are fairly easy to accomplish. And then you can build on those small things.
Sure. Like, I'm not going to stay sober for the rest of my life. I'm going to stay sober for today.
Right.
That kind of thing, right? Is you have to kind of break it down into smaller segments. I think that's definitely helpful. So let's talk about SMART, this acronym, SMART. Let's talk about those, and maybe we can use some examples we've had in our own life.
Yeah.
As we kind of walk through them? Okay. So the S, we start with the S, so specific, right? I mean, we really got to make sure that we're not just saying I'm going to lose weight, because technically if I lost 2 pounds, that would be losing weight, right?
Yes.
But what are we really talking about specific? Okay, I want to lose 25 pounds. Now that's more specific.
Right.
Or again, you can use I'm going to adhere to taking my medication as prescribed, and I'm going to set a timer on my phone, my smartphone. I'm going to use an app. It's going to remind me. But that means I might be somewhere while my alarm goes off. What am I going to do? Right? I think you have to kind of think it through a little more, this specificness of what it is. It's not just I'm going to take my medication every day.
Right. It's sort of creating the plan of how to do that. Yeah. Like, what am I going to do, right? So I think that's really where it starts off. And that first one is really important. I'm going to lose the 25 pounds or, whatever you want the goal to be for yourself. So you want to take the next one? Yeah. So the M is measurable. And the reason this is important is that how are you going to know you got there?
Right.
So you have to put something on that. It's like the losing weight, and you said, I'm going to lose 25 pounds. You can even get more specific. I'm going to keep using that word with it and say, I'm going to lose 25 pounds in 6 months or whatever it is.
Right.
And if that seems overwhelming, then break it down into, I'm going to lose 2 pounds this month or whatever that is. But making sure that you know when you've achieved that goal.
Right. And I think if we think about the losing weight thing, how am I going to measure my weight? Well, I'm going to get on a scale every day, right? And I'm going to check what is my weight. Or maybe it's not every day. Maybe I'm going to get on it every other day. Or maybe I'm only going to get on it once a week because that is my goal. My specific goal is I'm going to lose, like you said, 2 pounds a month or something. So maybe I am only going to get on it once a month or once every couple of weeks. Or I think the measurable, how am I going to know? Like, if you're going to save money, how are you going to know? You have to be specific. You can't just say, I'm going to save money. I need to save, or I want to save, I'm choosing to save $1,000 this year. Okay, so how am I going to do that? And I think breaking it down, and then what are the ways you're going to measure it? Oh, I'm going to check that bank statement that I get in the mail that I just throw out, right? Normally that you get and you're like, oh, it's my bank statement, right? Like, or I'm going to set up and log in online. I'm going to check my every Monday morning or something. I don't know. But I think that piece is important, the measurable part, right? Otherwise, you don't really know. Are you losing the weight? Are you saving the money?
And if you don't have a way to measure it, then I think you can lose your motivation, right? If there's not, if you can't actually see the change.
Right. And it's like that saying, there's an app for that.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, right? I mean, there is seriously apps for like everything. And so I think that you really need to think about like how you're going to do that. And everybody has phones. So your best bet is probably to just find an app and, or a peer supporter, if you have a peer supporter you're working with. But even that, I mean, I think that you could find an app to kind of remind you. And one of the ones that I think is a good one for goal setting, now this is only for Apple, but it's called Strides, Strides. And it's pretty cool because they've got all of these different things like losing weight, budgeting, saving money, sleep. You might set a goal of getting more sleep, right? Like sleep debt is right, or working out or drinking water. Many of us walk around and we're dehydrated. We really don't drink enough water. So that's built in. They got one for graduating high school, college, measuring how much junk food you're eating in a week. I mean, they have so many things kind of built into it. And so you download the app and there's a way to keep track, and then it has like different colors, green, reds, It's highly rated. Forbes magazine, New York Times. I mean, it's like one of the top rated goal setting apps that are out there. So whatever it is, however specific you want to get, doesn't really matter. If you got an iPhone, I would look at Strides for sure. All right, what's the next one here?
Achievable.
Yeah, achievable. Is this realistic? So let's use the weight thing. I mean, if I said, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to lose 25 pounds, and you ask me by when, and I say this month, that's not achievable. I'm not going to do that unless I like starve myself, right? And so I think you have to be pretty realistic with yourself. And if it's something like I'm going to save $1,000, if it's something I'm going to lose the 25 pounds, what's realistic? Like what's healthy? So if I said to you, Andy, I'm going to lose 25 pounds, what do you feel like is a realistic time frame for that?
6 months.
So that means I'm losing 4 pounds a month roughly. That's pretty doable. That's a pound a week.
Yeah.
That's pretty doable. So I think you have to consider that. Like if I want to save that $1,000, well, how much extra money do I actually have every month? If I want to save $1,000 in a year, right?
Yes.
Then I have to make sure I have enough money every month to actually put away in a savings account Otherwise, come December, I'm never going to, it's not achievable. There's no way I cannot attain that goal. So I think that's the next part where you really have to break that down and say, well, I'd like to save $1,000 this year, but I only have $50 extra every month.
Right. So I have a good example for this. When I got divorced, my finances were an absolute disaster. Lots of debt, things at collections, just all kinds of stuff that I had to work my way out of. And looking at all of that stuff and thinking, oh, I've got to get all of this paid off was just way too overwhelming. And I find when I get overwhelmed like that, then I don't do anything. Because if I'm not going to be able to do it right or well, then I'm just not going to do it. So I really had to break that down into little tiny pieces. You know, I'm going to put this much money towards this bill, and you know, I'm going to put this here, and of course my credit was terrible. Things that I did, I got a secured credit card, right? So you put money down on it, and then you use it, and it helps build your credit. And I've just kept that one. So, you know, if something disastrous happens, I always have that little piece of money that I could pay that card off with. Now, I'm probably in a place where I could get an unsecured card, get my $500 back, but it makes me feel better to just have that safety net.
You know you have that. Yeah. That's pretty cool. That's a really good example. Yeah. I mean, again, you said this in the beginning. I think it's those small steps along the way, and you mentioned it there. You know, it's like you want to get your finances into order, but it's complex, right? It's not simple. There's all kind of parts to that. So that's great. That's a great example. All right.
Leads me into the relevant part also.
Yeah.
That those things have to mean something to you. They can't be something that somebody told you to do. My example of that is that my dad was always really big on buy a house. You need to buy a house. Okay.
Right.
I don't want to buy a house. Okay, I live in my mother's house, so it's sort of like I own a house, but not really, right? And so, but even if I didn't, I'm not sure that buying a house is something that really means something to me.
But it did to him.
It was huge to him, and I think part of that was how he grew up, you know, in a tiny little apartment, you know, and all of that stuff. But that wasn't a goal that I wanted to work toward. I had other things that were more important to me.
And so I'm curious, did you buy a house?
No, because I live in my mother's house.
Yeah. You know, so this is one, you know, when we were prepping, I said this, and I think this is one of the things where our system goes awry. I think that, you know, we say to people who are early in recovery, people who are struggling, well, you know, you just have to do this. And the this is like a million different things, right? Like, you just have to take your medication. Well, you just have to stay out of jail. Well, you just have to stop drinking. Well, you just have to, right? Like, we're always doing that. We're always, like, directing people, like, well, you know.
But if I could do those things, I would be doing those things.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't need you. I wouldn't need your treatment program, right? Like, and so I think we kind of miss that because we don't make it relevant to the person. And anybody who's done a motivational interviewing class knows that's what this is all about, right? It's about, like, finding the motivation within the person, letting them discover their own wants and needs and letting them discover it, and you're just sort of helping that process along. And the relevant one is so, like, you know, it's like the losing weight. I mean, my doctor can tell me, hey, you know, you should lose weight. You know, right? But until I say I'm going to lose 25 pounds in the next 6 months, and I get specific, and I start measuring it, and I start, making a plan so that it's going to be achievable. Like until I own it, and I think in recovery, we say, it's personal responsibility. Until you're taking responsibility for it, so I'm going to save money. Okay, till I actually start doing that, and I want to do that. People can tell you to buy a house all day long. They can tell you to lose weight, but I think this one is important.
It kind of ties in with stuff we've talked about recovery planning too.
Sure.
Recovery planning versus crisis planning. Or safety plans. I guess that's where I was going with safety plans, right? The system says you need to have a safety plan, sign this piece of paper that says you won't kill yourself, right?
Right.
But that's not really where you need to be.
Yeah. Agreed. No, it's, you've really got to own it. This is the one, the R in SMART. This is where you own it. This is where it's yours. Like, why do you want to do that? And this is where I think talking to somebody about your goal is important, because you are going to articulate it to them, right? Like, I really want to save the money because I want to use the $1,000 to take a trip, to go see my family and, back east or something, right? Like, it's specific. It's meaningful to you. And so this is important. They're all important, but I think this ownership piece, because this is when things get tough, when things get tough because you're getting on the scale every day and you're not losing the weight, this is where you got to kind of draw from. Like, is this goal really relevant to you? Because then it's so easy to say, well, I've been trying for 3 weeks, I haven't lost a pound, so just forget it. I'll go back to my bag of Doritos, and that's it, right? And then the goal goes away. So making it really relevant to you, I think, is going to help you over the course of the goal, whether it's a year or 6 months or even smaller than that. All right, so the last one is timely. Your goal, does it have a finish date? Is it with what you're doing? Like, if I don't have a job and my goal is to save $1,000, that's not going to probably work, right? But it gives me an opportunity to set another goal. It's just like, starting out on any kind of journey. We're leaving here, we're going to there, we're going to get there, this is our route, this is our plan, and we should be there by, like, when should you be there by? And that it's not just open-ended, I'm going to lose 25 pounds, but might be 6 months, might be a year, might be 5 years. You're going to lose motivation along the way somewhere, and you're going to stop even working at it, right?
Yeah.
So, SMART, SMART goals. You can Google this, and there are hundreds of examples of this. You ever Googled this? And I can't believe how many there are.
And for all different kinds of things, too.
Yeah.
Areas of your life, or...
For sure. There's just so many different ones in here. I'm just flipping through. Some of them are charts, and there's graphs, and, there's all kinds of things. So if you need help with this, and in fact, I'm looking at one right here. It's a worksheet, a SMART goal setting worksheet. Just Google it and look it up and find one that kind of speaks to you. Some are like super detailed, and some are just like little images, and you can put that up so you can look at it every day. I always found that to be kind of helpful with goals, is to have it either on my phone or like on the refrigerator or somewhere that I'm going to see it. Did you find that in your life with the goal setting?
Yeah, and we related back to recovery planning too. We talk about you need to write it down in order to hold yourself accountable or to remind yourself of why you're doing it, or what it is, and maybe you want to share it with other people who can help you with that.
I think sharing it is really important. I think that helps. Again, I think when you're not so motivated, I think that it comes into play because there's people who are reminding you, oh, hey, how's your goal going? Or, where are you at with your goal? And so I think that's really important. There's even videos. So I went to the Mind Tools website. They got lots of good stuff on there. And even they have videos on SMART goals, how to make and achieve your SMART goals, and super cool. So do some background, some education for yourself, learn about setting SMART goals, and, think about it. I think it is a good time of year to, think about the next 12 months and what's that going to look like for you in your wellness and your recovery, your life, and the things you want to achieve. So when we reach next December, you can reflect back and say, wow, I did that, or I achieved that, or I, helped myself this way. And I think setting the smaller goals does help to build towards the bigger stuff over time, don't you think?
It's nice to be successful in something and then build your momentum that way.
Absolutely. These are great tools. If you're listening and you're a peer supporter, and you're working with somebody, introduce them to SMART goals, talk to them about SMART goals. And, we all know, like, early in our recovery, man, there's so many things that we need to work on. It can be really overwhelming, and helping people break those down into smaller bite-size, it's like how do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time, like help people break that down and work on it, and you can be their cheerleader along the way, because it's hard. Change is hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So SMART goals, and of course, we're going to do a plug for Healthy Minds, Healthy Bodies. We have SMART goals built into our Healthy Minds, Healthy Bodies workbook. If that's something, SMART goals that you're interested in, we combine that with the 8 dimensions of wellness. And if that's something you're into, if this is appealing to you, you can go on our website and go to the store and pick yourself up a copy of Healthy Minds, Healthy Bodies, and we have SMART goals in there, space for you to set up your goals for each of the 8 dimensions. There's lots of good information in there, and it's a great tool for the recovery toolbox. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up. And again, want to say thanks for tuning in to another Recovery Talks podcast. Catch us every week. You'll either have Andy and I talking about a particular subject, or we have guests and we do spotlights on people. Something we started at the end of last year, we started that recovery roundtable. We're going to have more of those coming to you in 2020. So if you like that kind of format where you've got a group of people kind of talking, we are going to have more of those. But we have a bunch of guests lined up for this year already, don't we?
Oh, yeah. And I'm trying to focus every month. So like next month, we'll focus on relationships. So we'll have several podcasts surrounding that.
Yeah, February, the month of love, right? Okay, well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Recovery works, and recovery is possible.
Recovery works, and recovery is possible.
Recovery works, recovery is possible.
Recovery is possible.
Recovery works, and recovery is possible.
Recovery works.
And recovery is possible.
Recovery works and recovery is possible.
Recovery is possible.